Haikutushangaza kuona kuwa baadhi ya vijana waliokamatwa kutokana na kadhia hiyo wametoka nje ya Tanzania.
Tanzania is under intense scrutiny after reports of serious human rights violations during the recent three-day protest that shook the country. Opposition party CHADEMA has now filed a case at the International Criminal Court accusing President Samia Suluhu's administration of failing to protect citizens during what turned into a deadly confrontation between security forces and demonstrators.
Yeah, so believe you in Tanzania.
The protests, which began as peaceful gatherings demanding political reforms and accountability, reportedly escalated into violence that left many people dead and hundreds detained. Local sources and rights groups claim that several of those who disappeared have not been found, sparking fears of unlawful killings. CHADEMA says the scale of tragedy is far greater than what the government has admitted.
Only the UN and the ICC can establish the truth on the ground.
In her response, President Samia Suluhu has maintained that those arrested during the unrest were not Tanzanian citizens, suggesting that foreign groups may have crossed into the country to cause instability. This statement has drawn mixed reactions, with many questioning whether it was an attempt to deflect responsibility. Critics argue that such remarks risk undermining the seriousness of the accusations now facing her administration.
Tumesikitishwa na kuhuzunishwa na matukio ya uvunjifu wa amani, upotevu wa maisha na uharibifu wa mali za umma na mali za watu binafsi kwenye baadhi ya maeneo hapa nchini, hasa kwenye majiji na miji. Kilichotokea hakiendani na taswira na sifa za Kitanzania na sio Utanzania. Haikutushangaza kuona kuwa baadhi ya vijana waliokamatwa kutokana na kadhia hiyo wametoka nje ya Tanzania.
The country's human rights community has called for a transparent and independent investigation into the events. Many believe that the temporary power and internet blackouts during the protests were aimed at concealing what was happening on the ground. For families searching for loved ones, those 3 days remain a nightmare of silence and confusion. CHADEMA's decision to move to the ICC marks a major escalation. The party says it has compiled evidence of excessive use of force, arbitrary arrests, and the targeting of unarmed citizens. Their legal team has already submitted preliminary documents to The Hague, urging the court to open a formal investigation into possible crimes against humanity.
Footages we see and that have even reached my phone here, and I can show you, you can see by yourself. And this is just a dot of what is on the ground, bodies on the roads, okay? Dead bodies on the roads, people cleaning those bodies. It is just a spot of the reality. And this is just Dar es Salaam. What about other regions? Talk of Mwanza, talk of Kahama, talk of Mbeya, talk in the rural areas of what has happened there.
Across the country, fear and uncertainty still linger. Security patrols remain visible in several towns, while reports continue to surface of people being held in undisclosed locations. Families are still waiting for words on relatives who vanished during the protests, while community leaders call for calm and restraint. Observers say the protests were fueled by growing public frustration over unemployment, governance, and restrictions on political activity. Opposition voices have repeatedly accused the government of limiting freedom of expression and suppressing dissent. The violent response to the demonstrations, they claim, was a reflection of that intolerance.
Waliomchagua na waliochagua wagombea wengine na hata ambao hawakushiriki uchaguzi. Kwa sisi tuliochaguliwa, ahadi yetu kwenu wananchi ni kulitumikia taifa hili kwa nguvu zetu zote, vipawa vyetu vyote na maarifa yetu yote. Ndugu zangu,
The international community has taken notice. Several Western countries and human rights organizations are closely monitoring the situation, with discussions already underway about possible diplomatic consequences if the Tanzanian government fails to cooperate with investigations. Regional bodies like the African Union are also being urged to take an active role in seeking justice and reconciliation. Within the ruling party, tension appears to be rising. Senior officials are said to be holding private meetings to assess the political fallout and to prepare for the ICC preliminary review. Analysts warn that if the court finds enough evidence to proceed, it could result in summonses for key figures within the government or security forces.
As we have been saying for a few days now, we have been collecting evidence of the atrocities and the massacre that has happened in Tanzania. And despite the media blackout, human beings always find a way. And right now we are seeing the videos, the footage that is coming from Tanzania. And in very simple terms, it is a bloodbath. It is a massacre. And we cannot allow ourselves.
President Suluhu, who came into office promising unity and reform, now faces the most serious tests of her leadership. Her administration's image has been shaken both at home and abroad. The reports of journalists, activists and opposition leaders being intimidated have added to growing fears that Tanzania is slipping into a period of political repression.
Pili ni washukuru wa Tanzania wote kwa imani yao kwa Chama cha Mapinduzi na kwa mapenzi makubwa na kutupa mimi na makamu wa rais fursa hii adhimu ya kuwatumikia. Shukrani za kipekee kwa viongozi na wanachama wa Chama cha Mapinduzi kwa namna walivyoendesha kampeni kwa mafanikio makubwa sana.
As the ICC prepares to review the case, Tanzania stands at a crossroads. This moment could either lead to genuine accountability and reforms or deepen mistrust and division. Civil society groups continue to call for peace and dialogue, urging both the government and opposition to prioritize justice and national healing.
Shughuli inakuwa nzuri na ya kufurahisha ikihudhuriwa na ndugu zako wanaokupenda. Tanzania leo imejawa na furaha kubwa kuona baadhi ya waheshimiwa marais wenzangu na viongozi mbalimbali wa nchi jirani na nchi marafiki.
For now, the world watches closely. The families of those who lost their loved ones are still waiting for answers. The opposition insists it will not rest until justice is served. And as President Samia Suluhu faces international pressure, the question remains whether her government will allow an open and fair investigation, or if this will become another chapter of silence in the country's troubled political history.
Mimi Samia Suluhu Hassan naapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania na kuitumikia kwa moyo wangu wote, na kwamba nitaihifadhi, nitailinda na kuitetea.
However, the process unfolds. The events of those 3 days have already left a lasting mark on Tanzania. They have exposed the deep divisions within the nation and challenged the image of calm that once defined Suluhu's presidency. The coming months will determine whether Tanzania moves towards truth and accountability or remains trapped in the shadows of its